rumors. The LAPD and medical examiner are still investigating. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Mount St. Mary's University, LA takes students to the next level. Introducing Empower, their 4-year plan to launch you into the world as an unstoppable force. Discover more at msmu.edu.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Chargers lost their second straight game after a 3-0 start. Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders rolled up in the SoFi Stadium Sunday and dominated the Chargers 27-10. Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels, back in the lineup after missing 2 weeks with a sprained left knee, threw for 231 yards and a touchdown. After the game, the San Bernardino native was spotted giving a tender handshake to USC women's basketball star Juju Watkins. The Dodgers are back in action today in Philadelphia for Game 2 of their divisional round playoff series. The Dodgers have a 1-0 lead in the best-of-7. First pitch at 3 p.m. Pacific time on TBS. UCLA's 42-37 upset win over Penn State Saturday knocked Penn State out of the top 25 rankings. Penn State was ranked 7th in the nation when they walked into the Rose Bowl Saturday morning. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. What an extraordinary Monday we have planned for you today. Our very special guest in the first hour will be none other than Ernest Krim. And in our second hour, Teresa Hord Owens, the President and General Minister of the United Disciples of Christ Church, both in the United States and in Canada. We've learned our lessons observing the activity of Donald Trump and the National Guard in Los Angeles. We've seen his deployments in various forms across the country, but it is clear that a showdown is going to take place here in the city of Chicago, the epicenter of what will be a defining order between the federal government and the states. The consequences of this confrontation nonviolently will echo through the halls of the Congress, state legislatures, and our nation for many, many generations. The governor of the state of Illinois and the mayor of the city of Chicago are now in federal court seeking to stop the deployment of federal troops and the National Guard from the state of Illinois, which the president has already activated here in the state of Illinois for a crime spree that he says is taking place that none of the statistics can justify is actually accurate. But even more troubling, and I want everyone to pay very close attention to this, the National Guard in the state of Illinois are our neighbors. They are our neighbors. We know these people. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're soldiers, they're men and women who live and work with us every day. When they're called into service for their nation, they respond. They respond overwhelmingly as our nation's patriots to address any national security needs or threats to the American people. But recently, Governor Abbott of Texas said that he wants to deploy National Guardsmen from Texas to Chicago for this unique mission of immigration enforcement, as well as to stop crime sprees in the city of Chicago. Now, mind you, this is the governor who, when immigrants cross the border illegally, he placed them on a bus along with the governor of Florida, and he sent them to Chicago in the middle of the winter. And our city of big shoulders opened its arms and said, we are not going to let families and children freeze. We are a sanctuary city consistent with our Christian mission and Christian obligations. And we welcome them into our cities, or they would simply freeze to death, just discarding people. Now, in cahoots with Donald Trump, the president of the United States, Abbott wants to send 400 of his National Guardsmen to the city of Chicago to enforce laws that he is responsible for breaking in our city. And it is increasingly clear that the mission creep from enforcing immigration law now includes what? Locking up Black people. Here on 75th and South Shore Drive, just 3 blocks from my home on East 72nd Street, we could hear the noise. We could hear the flashbangs, if you will, just a few short days ago. One budget rental truck pulled up with zip-tied neighbors. I have no way of identifying or knowing whether or not they were legal or not. They were Latino. In the other budget truck, they filled it up with zip-tied African Americans. Zip-tied arrested African Americans who were not Mirandized or read their rights. There's probably very little, if any, chance that these people had anything to do with crossing the border in Texas. Now, these Texas boys are on their way to Chicago to be embedded with the Illinois National Guard. They will be wearing the exact same uniforms as the Illinois National Guard, as all of our servicemen and women do, but they do not know us. They are not our neighbors. They are coming here with masks, perceptions, biases about people who live up there, about this crime-ridden place in Chicago, and they will be engaged, according to Pete Hegseth, and a speech that the President of the United States delivered before the generals just a few short days ago. He said, we have an enemy within. That's what Donald Trump said. And Pete Hegseth said, all you fat generals and fat troops need to get out of the army because we are now a war department fighting with maximum lethality. The enemy within? Maximum lethality. And here come the Texas boys to Chicago. People who do not know us will be wandering the streets of the city of Chicago. I am profoundly concerned and very prayerful that this moment would have never come, but here we find ourselves. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, Ernest Krim will be our very special guest on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward on this great station.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 five-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest is Ernest Grimm. Ernest is a regular contributor on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and he is my favorite millennial. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Brother Jesse, it's good to be here with you again.
I appreciate you being here. Ernest, let me ask our producer, Gina Towns, and Miles Lowe, as well as Taz Scott, to run the clip.
Now, this all comes as the U.S. Department of Defense officially directs hundreds of National Guard troops to Illinois. The move revealed in a memo obtained over the weekend.
And as Lauren Victory explains, many would come from Illinois' own military, despite the objections right now from Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Mayor Brandon Johnson's day is just getting started. After signing that executive order, he'll be at a news conference with Governor J.B. Pritzker, who will be talking about the use of hundreds of troops in Illinois. A federal memo obtained by CBS News reveals up to 300 members of the Illinois National Guard would be deployed to protect federal property and government personnel performing federal functions. That's in addition to 400 other Guardsmen and women from Texas that'll be split up between Chicago and Portland, Oregon. The move comes after clashes between protesters and federal agents in both locations, including multiple tense interactions at the ICE Center in Broadview. President Donald Trump explains he's sending in troops as part of an immigration and crime crackdown. He's repeatedly said mobilizing the military will, quote unquote, straighten Chicago out. Here's how Governor Pritzker is reacting.
He's saying that, Chicago is a war zone. None of that is true. They're just making this up. And then what do? They fire tear gas and smoke grenades, and they make it look like it's a war zone.
The governor's office tells us that even leadership with the Illinois National Guard has communicated to the White House that the state doesn't require military force right now. Exactly when and where those troops will be is unclear. I'm Lauren Victory, CBS News, Chicago.
And thank you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Ernest, these are very difficult times for the people of the city of Chicago and for our nation, and certainly the anxiety is rising with the presence of troops from the state of Texas. Now, mind you, once again, in my opening, I shared with you and with the listeners that Abbott is responsible for sending the immigrants to Chicago in the first place. Now he's unleashing the National Guard, his guardsmen here in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. And let me just comment very quickly on the chain of command. Governor Abbott is not relinquishing control of the Texas National Guard to the governor of Illinois. Governor Abbott will maintain control of the Texas National Guard in Illinois through the President of the United States. In other words, we could be looking at a disaster so catastrophic in modern American history that we cannot truly calculate what its consequences and implications are. Ernest, what are you hearing out there in the streets?
Yeah, I would first want to ask the audience a question to ponder and reflect on. What is it called when a leader from another territory, state, country, or otherwise sends in their military to yours without your permission? You know,
sounds like an invasion to me.
It sounds like an invasion. It sounds like a declaration of war. It sounds like a complete disregard for the people here who have not requested it. It goes against everything our leadership stands for. And just like you said, these are people who are our neighbors. Now, in Illinois, we know, although of course not everybody agrees politically here, but we know what type of leadership we have elected, and we know the type of political progress we've been able to have here. Now, if you juxtapose that to Texas, we know that those neighbors would look drastically different. And of course, we know not everyone in Texas is a monolith, but there's concern for me, understanding that they are coming here or attempting to come here under the leadership of a governor who is in alignment with the president, who constantly is attacking our Democratic leadership, our Black Democratic leadership. And also, too, another cause for concern is right before I got on this call with you, I saw clips of the Chicago Police Department being pepper sprayed by ICE agents. I've seen clips where there was a brother who was being choked by an ICE agent right outside of Equity and Transformation's office on the west side of Chicago. And I was told that that Black man was eventually released because people had to call the police, and the police were able to get that person released, which to me, this goes against everything we have been taught over the past 5 years or so about what we do and organize it. Oftentimes, it has been viewed as if the police, especially locally in Chicago, would not be doing things that are in alignment with the people involved in justice movements. But we see ourselves at a very interesting crossroads in history, where the police in our city, in Chicago, are seemingly in some ways in opposition to the military threat that's targeting our residents. And it's very concerning, like you said, because you have to wonder, how is all of this going to work together if in fact they are all here at the exact same time? We also know that Mayor Johnson just signed an executive order this morning that is saying that it is illegal for ICE to operate on city property. So now we are seeing the executive of this city counter the executive orders from the president. And this is what we really have wanted to see on a national platform, because if they can play that game, then we can play that game as well. And honestly, brother, just in closing, it appears to me that we are seeing, I know we've had conversations about the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights. We are seeing every aspect of that challenge right before our eyes. I would hate to be a government teacher right now in the classroom. I would hate to have to be teaching law right now, because really in this moment, what is it? What is it? And you know, and as I was pondering this past week about what exactly is going on, I was reading some Dr. Amos Wilson, and one of the quotes that he said in this book I was reading from 1987 just really struck me. At the end of this quote, he says, if in exercising our rights under this so-called Constitution and under the laws of this country, the status of whites is threatened, you will see that they will disobey and break their own laws. That is what we are witnessing in this moment. We as a community, law-abiding citizens, above most people here, attempting to do as best we can to really follow through on what this democratic process looks like, are being on the other, are being countered and attacked by by existing and doing what we have always wanted to do in this country. They are rigging the game, rigging the system so that they can continue to win. And it is very troubling to think about and consider what that might look like moving forward.
You know, it's really interesting. I wrote a note to my Christian brethren and sisterin today, and I said, dear Christians, the only weapon that you have is a cell phone recording the frozen people's behavior. Any other weapon formed against you will prosper unless you record it, put it on social media, and show them choking people in the streets or putting zip ties on 3- and 4-year-old kids and dragging men and women in their nakedness out of their homes and throwing them not in paddy wagons, not in cars, but in the back of budget rental trucks. The weapon that we have is the cell phone. That's what we get to record and show the violation of our constitutional rights and our human rights. Please do not pull out any other weapons. Just record it. Just upload it. Send it to the media and show exactly what is taking place, because it's going to require national public opinion to look at our humanity, to see how the federal government is treating us. What we thought would be political retribution from Donald Trump, which is unjustified, against people who impeached him, people who prosecuted him, people who locked him up. He is now seeking political retribution against people who did not vote for him. That's all. We just didn't vote for him. In a free society, we have the right not to vote for him. And because we are so-called blue and did not vote for him, he's decided to punish us from Chicago to Oregon, from Chicago to Baltimore, from Chicago to Los Angeles, from Los Angeles to San Francisco. He has decided to use the full weight and force of the U.S. military. Now, I don't want to separate, Ernest, and I do want you to comment on this. His speech to the Quantico generals, where he talked about the enemy within, and then that jackass of a Secretary of Defense right before that speech, what a weasel. He gets up and starts like he's on some kind of steroid or something, talking about fat troops and, PT and how we need to do more sit-ups and maximum lethality and unleashing the troops and violating people's constitutional rights. And we're not going to follow the rules of war for those who don't have our weapons or our trained military any longer. And he said something else that I found particularly troubling. He seemed to support torture. Torture for what? For not agreeing with Donald Trump and his policies? See, what's going to happen here is they're going to end up rounding up some real middle-class folk who, simply because they're black and these Texans don't know them, they're going to brutalize them. And the consequences of that are going to be so extraordinary because the Texans can't distinguish. They don't know who we are. They don't know our neighbors. Ernest, I hope I'm speaking for Chicagoans with my anxiety and my angst. But we learned from Los Angeles what took place in Los Angeles and what did not take place in Beverly Hills. Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth recently said in a speech in Quantico, Virginia, exactly what he intends to do with the Texas troops in the city of Chicago.
You are spot on, brother. And I think this is a state of emergency. I think everybody should not just be aware, but just to understand their role at this point in time. We have a president, we have leaders who are viewing us as the enemy.
He called us a training ground. He said our cities need to be a training ground for the troops. Our taxpayer dollars used against us. He wants Chicago and Los Angeles and Baltimore and other cities around the country who did not vote for him to be a training ground for the U.S. military. I mean, how mad is that? I mean, that's psychopathic in my opinion.
What that means to me is that we, as Black folks or just people of color in general, we can be labeled within the confines of what they view as an undocumented immigrant, as a so-called enemy within. They have different coded languages for the people they want to target. They won't explicitly say Latinos, but we know what they mean when they talk about so-called illegal immigrants, right? We know who they're not talking about European migrants, for example. And when they talk about the enemy within, or they talk about thugs or criminals, that's coded language for us and for anybody else who is left of the aisle. And the thing about us as a community is, regardless of Black folks are considering themselves to be red or blue or liberal or conservative, you are still viewed through that prism. So if you just so happen to be in the vicinity of something like this, we have to really be concerned about what that looks like for how we'll be labeled. And we understand that we have always dealt with circumstances like this, but I think some probably thought that we would be able to evade this during this time. But any attack on anybody is essentially an attack on us. We know what a home invasion looks like. We know what it looks like throughout the 80s and 90s to have our Fourth Amendment rights constantly violated. And this is that on another level, because during different times throughout history, there always appeared that we could go to someone, right? Go to file a lawsuit, to fight for our rights in varieties of different ways. And unfortunately for us in our state, we have that protection to a degree, but once it goes to a federal level, it's completely dead.
Ernest, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
You read at the beginning of the segment a quote from the book in front of you about the ability for some Americans to, when they feel that their rights are threatened, to literally ignore the law. Can you read that again?
Yes. And this quote was by Dr. Amos Wilson. And the quote towards the end said, if an exercise in our rights under this so-called Constitution and under the laws of this country, the status of whites is threatened, you will see that they will disobey and break their own laws. And that's from 1987.
You will see that they will disobey and break their own laws if they feel like their status is threatened. What the hell does Chicago have to do with a person's status in the state of Texas? I just can't put it together, except that the Constitution of the United States itself is deficient, and the president's lack of moral character, his lack of a moral compass, his incapacity to understand what his role is, and a Supreme Court that has abdicated its responsibility is as shocking as it's ever been. I'm afraid to say that not only is our nation not safe under the leadership of Donald Trump, but on this occasion, Ernest, we actually live in a very, very dangerous world, largely promulgated by the President of the United States. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Ernest Krim when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The Senate will hold more votes today as the government shutdown enters day 6. Black House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries tells NBC's Today Show any funding bill must include health care provisions.
We'll sit down with anyone, anytime, any place in order to reopen the government.
He warned in a weekend letter that, quote, people will die if Affordable Care Act tax credits aren't renewed, end quote, while top Republicans insist they will not agree to Democrats' health care demands. Former Louisville, Kentucky officer Brett Hankinson has been ordered to report to prison Thursday to begin his 33-month sentence for violating a black woman, Breonna Taylor's civil rights. Hankinson fired blindly into Taylor's apartment during the 2020 botched raid, though his bullets did not strike anyone. And Ike Turner Jr., son of Ike and Tina Turner, has died at 67. TMZ reports the Grammy-winning producer passed away in Los Angeles from kidney failure. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Mount St. Mary's University, LA takes students to the next level. Introducing Empower, their 4-year plan to launch you into the world as an unstoppable force. Discover more at msmu.edu.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Chargers lost their second straight game after a 3-0 start. Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders rolled up in the SoFi Stadium Sunday and dominated the Chargers 27-10. Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels, back in the lineup after missing 2 weeks with a sprained left knee, threw for 231 yards and a touchdown. After the game, the San Bernardino native was spotted giving a tender handshake to USC women's basketball star Juju Watkins. The Dodgers are back in action today in Philadelphia for Game 2 of their divisional round playoff series. The Dodgers have a 1-0 lead in the best of 7. First pitch at 3 p.m. Pacific time on TBS. UCLA's 42-37 upset win over Penn State Saturday knocked Penn State out of the top 25 rankings. Penn State was ranked 7th in the nation when they walked into the Rose Bowl Saturday morning. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit caspvolunteer.org.
Hello, KBLA listeners. This is Dr. Paul Wallace. I want to discuss a type of eczema called atopic dermatitis, which is often misdiagnosed in Black children and adults. Atopic dermatitis is an autoimmune disorder that can be accompanied by food allergies, hay fever, and asthma. This rash targets the inner arms, behind the knees, and face, but can go all over the body. It causes excessive dryness and 24/7 itching. It's the scratching and steroid use that leads to permanent scarring. I'm enrolling patients in a new clinical research study focused on better treatment options for atopic dermatitis. Of course, your medication and travel reimbursements are provided. To see if you qualify, visit dermstudies.com or call us at 323-296-0048. That's 323-296-0048. There's nothing worse than itching. Let's take the next step in controlling this problem.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour and in this segment is none other on Moving Mountain Mondays than Ernest Krim III. Ernest is an Emmy-nominated producer. He is a cultural critic, a professor, a history teacher, and just an extraordinary millennial. certainly one of the future leaders of African Americans and all Americans, quite frankly, in our country. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks again for having me, brother.
Ernest, we had almost a full-blown war on 75th and South Shore Drive with Black Hawk helicopters, 200 National Guardsmen, and those were our neighbors. I mean, those weren't even the Texas boys. But the Texas boys coming to the city of Chicago on 75th and South Shore Drive, the unhinged nature of what they think they're seeing in a housing building or development in the city of Chicago, referring to people who might be members of a gang or not members of a gang as if they are engaged in activity that warrants the kinds of weapons that we saw on the streets of Chicago, weapons that were not used in Los Angeles. They were present, but they weren't used. Helicopters. I mean Black Hawk helicopters with paratroopers dropping out of the side of these helicopters on ropes, landing on roofs in American cities at 2:00 in the morning, terrorizing people. Ernest, I don't see how this is going to end well, because this level of terror and anxiety is exactly that. I don't know if it requires a curfew. I don't know if it requires some kind of COVID protocol where everyone is allowed to work from home. And I don't know if the governor of the state of Illinois and the mayor of the city of Chicago are going to have to shut down our major portals like O'Hare and Midway and literally close them to shake the nation's economy and to get the attention of the entire nation that there's something wrong here, that this is not right, that there's nothing right. There's something strange about this. There's nothing right about this. We've never seen this before. And this cannot be the new normal. I'm watching very closely the leadership of Governor Pritzker and Governor Brandon Johnson. And one of the major levers that they have are two of the world's most important ports where they can actually get the undivided attention of the world if, in fact, the city of Chicago decided to stop global trade. Your thoughts on that subject?
I'm very concerned about the mental health of our community and people following this raid. When I see something like that, I think about what happened to Breonna Taylor. I think about the very real reality that we have experienced situations like this. I don't want to say on a smaller scale, but in isolated situations. Now, imagine if what happened to Breonna Taylor in Kentucky was something that we thought could happen to everybody on that block day by day with permission from the president. You know, I think about the raids that happened in our community in the 70s, 80s, and 90s during that so-called war on drugs. I think about the fact that how can we even feel safe sleeping at night following this? You bring up an interesting point, because I think that we are at a point where our mayor and governor have to respond in any way they can to protect the people here. And I think that they have given us the feeling that they will. This is a game to this administration. For anybody that has seen the propaganda video they posted after, you understand what I mean. And if you have not, I want you to be aware that they were recording. This isn't just something that we're recording for our evidence. They're recording this to create propaganda recruiting videos. And when you see those videos, what do they look like? To me, it looks like an ad for a video game. And who's the target audience? Our young men who might be sitting behind not just their phone scrolling all day or watching streaming all day, but playing these types of war games. And when they see that being promoted, in addition to the fact that they can maybe come right out of high school, I don't know, and make six figures with a signing bonus to fulfill that role, that's enticing. And then you're sending people from Texas. Now, brother, like, how do people outside of Chicago view Chicago? They think it's a war zone. And it's not, but now it is, and it's not because of us.
You know, I was looking at an article the other day, and I saw several news programs after the tragic killing of Charlie Kirk in Utah, where the military itself is trying to use what happened in Utah as a recruiting mechanism, a marketing methodology for attracting young recruits to join the military. What for? To stand between the Israelis and the Gazans? To stand between the Russians and the Ukrainians? To stop civil wars in the Congo, in Somalia, to feed starving people in Ethiopia, to stop drugs on our border? No, to combat the enemy within, because we're blue, because we're Democrat, because we don't agree with you, because we may have different cultural understandings and different definitions of what liberty and freedom mean for each of us as individuals. Somehow, because we don't ascribe to the ideology of the ruler, our existence itself is a threat to the republic. Troubling times, Ernest.
Yes, indeed. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking of the fact that this country has never truly had uniform civility. And what I mean by that is, next Monday is what is formerly known as Columbus Day, which has become Indigenous Peoples Day. But the unfortunate reality is it's still both things. So I'm also interested to see how he addresses that moving forward. But I say that because we think about the very founding, not just of this country, but this continent, because we know Columbus never stepped foot here. And that was through genocide. And that has constantly been celebrated. We talk about like a group of people, our so-called founding fathers, and how they gained power and how that trickled down, and how we once existed at a point in time in this country where elected officials would settle disputes by having duels. They would shoot at each other to settle differences. and if you really look at the way this nation has progressed politically, you see that there's the progress that's made is also in conjunction with the media evolution. So the more that we can do to expose the criminality that we have constantly been exposed to, the more things begin to change. And what we see right now, in my opinion, is a group of people that are saying that they are under threat so much that they do not they should not and will not abide by the rules and the methods of civility that we have grown accustomed to or have begun to grow towards as a nation, or at least the illusion of that. This is, to me, the great replacement theory politically. The idea that whiteness is being removed, that whiteness won't be here. And for those who believe that that gives them power, they are freaking out. We have not done anything to truly, we haven't waged war against a group of people who have waged war against us for generations, but they feel as though that's happening. And I think since 2008, that's been a cause for concern since Obama's presidency, regardless of what he did or did not do politically, the very symbol of him. And then a woman almost won in Hillary Clinton, and then a black woman almost won. These private text conversations are probably off the chain. They're likely freaking out. And to them, Trump is that last symbol of hope to regain power for whiteness, because what they see in my mind is a country that will eventually look like South Africa, where they are the minority. But they also want to have that same control, because in South Africa, white folks are the minority, but they have a majority of the control.
In 2001, I wrote a book called A More Perfect Union, updated it in 2019, and to this day, it is still the only alternative to Project 2025. That's just how visionary it was. A More Perfect Union. If I had to write a book today, if I had to write a book this week, in light of what you said about Columbus Day on one side of town is Indigenous Peoples Day on the other side of town, Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday on January 15th or January 20th. On that side of town, it's something we celebrate and commemorate. But on the other side of town, it's Robert E. Lee Day. If I had to write a book today, it would be called Hopelessly Divided. Hopelessly Divided. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. My very special guest in this hour is Ernest Krim. You're listening to us on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Is your loved one at the hospital or in a nursing home? Have they developed bed sores, fallen, or worse? These are things your family members should be protected from. Bed sores, falls, and dehydration are almost always the result of negligent care. If this has happened to your loved one, call Zoran at Basic Law Group at 800-215-1234 or visit basiclawgroup.com. The consultation is free, and if they don't win, you don't pay. That's 800-215-1234.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this Moving Mountain Monday first hour is none other than Ernest Grimm III. Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks again for having me, bro.
Ernest, hopelessly divided. Hopelessly divided. As a historian, you understand the significance of Columbus's holiday being celebrated on one side of town and indigenous peoples' holiday being celebrated on the other. You understand on the same day as Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, while we're celebrating and commemorating the life of Martin Luther King Jr., in other states, they're celebrating Robert E. Lee Day. Diametrically opposed, opposite ideas. And yet, somehow we are supposed to come together around the idea that we are a single people heading in a single direction. Ernest, in my opinion, on this day, we are hopelessly divided. We just don't understand each other. We're talking past each other. We're not looking in each other's eyes and communicating. Where are the millennials on the question of overcoming hopeless division?
Hmm. What I see a lot of, and even with that said, with next week, I think it's also important to bring up the fact that not only is it Columbus and Indigenous Peoples Day on a federal level, but there's then the very next day is the Charlie Kirk resolution, which is also the same day as George Floyd's birthday.
Yeah, how about that?
And-
George Floyd and Charlie Kirk, diametrically opposed, hopelessly divided.
And that's where we are. And I think to your point, what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling is that there's a division that has been wedged that is deep within this nation. It's a division that's always been here, but it's a division that truly shouldn't exist if you think about where we mostly are as Americans, numerically and economically. Most of us can relate to each other. Of course, cities like Chicago, cities like LA, Detroit, there can be a lot of segregation based on economics and sometimes race. But by and large, we have way more in common with the people who are next to us or across town than the ones that are making the decisions to disenfranchise us. When I look at where we are and I look at having a president and Supreme Court that is overturning literally every civil rights legislation from that era, I want us to really think about the damage that does, but also the fact that why segregation had to be banned. It's not so that we could have, gone to the same schools as a white person or shopped in their stores and rode a bus with them. It's for one, so that we could be treated with dignity, right? But then there's also two, because when we begin to know each other, we begin to have conversations with each other. We begin to know each other beyond the social media posts. And that's somebody who partly makes a career off of social media posts, who gets attacked quite frequently on my Facebook account by people who don't even like me or follow me. I can tell you that most of these people would not have that same vitriol or disdain or perceived hate if they actually had a conversation with me. How do I know that? Because I've had conversations with people across the aisle. Now, that's not to say that we always come away with agreement on 100% of the issues, but it's to say that if you sit down with somebody who looks different from you, had a different upbringing,
KBLA 1580,
a perception of a different political background, conversation helps build bridges to find common humanity. And what they want to do with what's happening in Chicago is continue to proliferate this propaganda and fallacy that is dangerous there, so that people will never want to come to the aid of those who are Americans and those who are residents. I'm finding and believing that this is a call for all of us to find ways to step away from our devices and build community with people who are next to us, of course, but also other Americans as well. That is truly the only thing that can save us in the long term.
Let me tell you something that's really interesting about the thesis that you just advanced. I went to law school in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, which is downstate. I ran for office in 1995 in a congressional district that was largely in the largest blue county in the state of Illinois, in Chicago. This particular congressional district has a lot of Democratic blue voters who look like you and I. We are called the Chicagoans. The red MAGA part of downstate, they're called the downstaters. Now, the downstaters don't want to have anything to do with Chicago. They've heard everything from Donald Trump and even before Donald Trump. All of the issues that are associated with being black are tied to the city of Chicago. Everything that's wrong with the state is tied to Chicago. In fact, 33 counties in downstate Illinois have voted to join Indiana. They no longer want to be a part of this state because of the activity taking place in Chicago. So the downstaters look up to Chicago like, there's this problem that's inherently tied to us. And we look at the downstaters and we're like, we don't want to have anything to do with you all because it just kind of seems like your way of life isn't something that we're accustomed to. And maybe even given our history as an agricultural people forced into American agriculture for most of our history on the continent, we kind of shun the idea of picking greens, corn, cotton, soybean, or anything else that's being grown in downstate Illinois. We are urban dwellers now. Now, when we get past calling each other upstaters and downstaters, when you really go down there and talk to people who are different political persuasions and maybe even colors than you are, you find out that the government hasn't invested in their roads, their cities, their streets, their sewers, their fresh water. You find out that all of the big downstate politicians are all from Chicago. The black ones have all the seniority in the House of Representatives and the state Senate. You know, J.B. Pritzker's from Chicago. He's an upstating liberal who doesn't take care of people downstate who need fresh water too. So it's us versus them all day long. But when you dig a little deeper, I have found they have the exact same needs and desires of their government that we have. And the truth of the matter is, increasingly, it looks like the government is not delivering for either side in this mixed. What do you have to say about that, Ernest? And let me ask you to say something about it in this, our final 3 minutes, in the context of maybe offering a word of hope, a way out for both sides.
Definitely. I think that if Americans, especially, those who fit our background, if you were to drive across America or just central Illinois or any part of middle America, anywhere outside of an urban area that's majority white, you would see that the stories of our so-called hoods are greatly exaggerated. I have seen white folks living in some of the most decrepit conditions in my life in states like Tennessee, states like Illinois, but these are red areas. The issue remains that instead of them focusing on those in power who are disenfranchising them, they keep falling for the con of thinking that we are the ones taking from them by social services that they also benefit from, for example, right? That's one of the bigger issues. So the issue beyond the fact that we are segregated in how we communicate, we're not segregated online, although the algorithm can give credence to that, but we are all miseducated, truthfully. That's why there's also not just a war in these cities, but there's a war on what you can learn about. Instead of learning about the purities of the so-called founding fathers, you should also learn about what they actually did to people, and then learn about white people that look like you that were fighting against racism too, in addition to learning about black folks. These are some of the issues we deal with, and these are the issues that white America has to grapple with. I think the best way to close this is to acknowledge the fact that it's the great Fannie Lou Hamer's birthday. And Fannie Lou Hamer is someone who stands as a role model to me, because not only did she stand up for voting rights after finding out that she could vote later in her life, but she faced violence constantly and she kept going. She kept standing up. This is not someone who would fit the profile of what we would expect to be a traditional leader, having going to a prestigious school and so on and so forth, or being a minister or whatever. But she stood up because she knew that was the right thing to do. But even beyond that, decided to own land as a co-op to help feed her community. And I think that's where we are right now. We have to exercise our voting rights, but we also have to find ways to feed our community based on the conditions that we are in right now, politically and economically.
Ernest, I can't wait to continue our conversation next week.
Likewise, brother. Thanks for having me again.
You're always welcome. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, Teresa Horde Owens, the president and general minister of the United Disciples of Christ Church, will be our special contributor, our special guest, but equally as important, she's going to move a big mountain for us to move today on Moving Mountain Mondays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The Senate will hold more votes today as the government shutdown enters day 6. Black House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries tells NBC's Today Show any funding bill must include health care provisions.
We'll sit down with anyone, anytime, any place in order to reopen the government.
He warned in a weekend letter that, quote, people will die if Affordable Care Act tax credits aren't renewed, end quote, while top Republicans insist they will not agree to Democrats' health care demands. Former Louisville, Kentucky officer Brett Hankinson has been ordered to report to prison Thursday to begin his 33-month sentence for violating a black woman, Breonna Taylor's civil rights. Hankinson fired blindly into Taylor's apartment during the 2020 botched raid, though his bullets did not strike anyone. And Ike Turner Jr., son of Ike and Tina Turner, has died at 67. TMZ reports the Grammy-winning producer passed away in Los Angeles from kidney failure. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Mount St. Mary's University LA takes students to the next level. Introducing Empower, their 4-year plan to launch you into the world as an unstoppable force. Discover more at msmu.edu.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Chargers lost their second straight game after a 3-0 start. Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders rolled up in the SoFi Stadium Sunday and dominated the Chargers 27-10. Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels, back in the lineup after missing 2 weeks with a sprained left knee, threw for 231 yards and a touchdown. After the game, the San Bernardino native was spotted giving a tender handshake to USC women's basketball star Juju Watkins. The Dodgers are back in action today in Philadelphia for Game 2 of their divisional round playoff series. The Dodgers have a 1-0 lead in the best of 7. First pitch at 3 p.m. Pacific time on TBS. UCLA's 42-37 upset win over Penn State Saturday knocked Penn State out of the top 25 rankings. Penn State was ranked 7th in the nation when they walked into the Rose Bowl Saturday morning. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest in this hour is the minister and president of the Christian Church, Disciple of Christ in the United States and Canada, the first person of color and second woman to lead the denomination with a priority of welcoming all to the Lord's house and table as God has welcomed us. Terry Hord Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Moving Mountain Mondays, the Teresa Hord Owens Show. Hi, Terry.
Good afternoon, Jesse. How are you? Boy, do we need the faith not to fall today.
Terry, I am terribly troubled with the increased federal presence over the objection of the governor of the state of Illinois, over the objection of the mayor of the city of Chicago. It is one thing to nationalize the Illinois National Guard, who are our neighbors and they know us. And they're not likely to look down the barrel of a very large gun at their neighbors. But to bring these Texas boys in from Governor Abbott's state, who do not know us, patrolling our streets as some kind of posse, seeing young derelicts of destitution, young men hanging out on corners, looking for either illegal immigrants or, in their minds, trying to break up any gathering of young African Americans, for me, Terry, is deeply troubling. Your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. It's not only troubling, and the sad thing is it is actually illegal. It is illegal. I think back to what happened back when President Eisenhower engaged he engaged the Arkansas National Guard. He federalized the local National Guard. He did not send in troops from other parts of the country. And he did so because the Supreme Court had already confirmed certain kinds of constitutional rights, due process, all of those good things. The sad thing is that in this case, not only do you have him sending National Guard troops from another state, but he's only doing that with states where there are Republican governors who agree with him and are willing to do it, because you still need the complicity of the governor from the state from which these folks are coming. There probably aren't too many places in the country that are more different than Texas and Chicago. It's just troubling. It's troubling. And the videos that we've been seeing about what happened in the South Shore neighborhood, a neighborhood that you and I are both familiar with. I've known people that lived there. My husband lived in South Shore when before we got married. I know that area well. There are pictures that say not only of children, but can you tell me that every single person in a building is a target? The current congressperson from the 2nd Congressional District, Robin Kelly, that's my congressional district. She sent out an email saying that over half of the people who were detained don't match any records, any court records. There have been no warrants. No one is following process. Not only are they wearing masks, but they're not following process. So it's deeply troubling. I follow follow lots of YouTubers these days because we get more truth outside of corporate media, as you deal with on this show. Under the Desk News, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that channel, but she did sort of an expose. She was talking with Senator Warren earlier today, and last night she posted something saying that there is evidence that the people who own these apartment buildings, that it could be part of really a scam to vacate these buildings of the poor and undesirable people, whoever they are, in order to be able to flip these buildings and turn them into high-rise condos. So there appears this whole notion of Tren de Agua, the gangs. They said, they put Venezuela on a door. They misspelled the word Venezuela. So even the evidence that they're trying to have about what's going on is just flat out lies. It doesn't take a whole lot of imagination to believe that there is something going on under the waters that really may or may not have anything to do with this whole notion of wreaking havoc on Chicago, that there are other economic benefits that some people who are in alliance with this administration will gain.
I think the motives are clearly sinister. The city sued this particular building owner here in South Shore for conditions. And then here, the National Guard essentially shows up looking for Venezuelans, arresting African Americans, taking and separating children from their families. It certainly suggests that there is a more sinister scheme that could very well be taking place underneath the deployment. But I want to get back to this nonsense with Governor Abbott, who is largely responsible for sending these people to Chicago illegally, and the amazing silence of the Northern District of Illinois for not indicting the governor of Texas for sending these people here. And then Governor Abbott sending the National Guard at Donald Trump's request to wreak havoc on our city after he sent them here. There is something particularly sinister about that as well. And application of the law itself is deeply troubling. More with Teresa Hort Owens when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I do know that we have just another second or two, Terry, but I do want to say that I am trying my best on this occasion to stay at the table that you have made.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know the mayor's trying to stay at the table, and so is the governor, but it is increasingly becoming difficult for some of us to stay at the table. I feel like what's going on in Chicago right now is the great big pushback. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 five-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at tra.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
Hello, KBLA listeners. This is Dr. Paul Wallace. I want to discuss a type of eczema called atopic dermatitis, which is often misdiagnosed in Black children and adults. Atopic dermatitis is an autoimmune disorder that can be accompanied by food allergies, hay fever, and asthma. This rash targets the inner arms, behind the knees, and face, but can go all over the body. It causes excessive dryness and 24/7 itching. It's the scratching and steroid use that leads to permanent scarring. I'm enrolling patients in a new clinical research study focused on better treatment options for atopic dermatitis. Of course, your medication and travel reimbursements are provided. To see if you qualify, visit dermstudies.com or call us at 323-296-0048. That's 323-296-0048. There's nothing worse than itching. Let's take the next step in controlling this problem.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress. If I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Reverend Teresa Terry Holt Owens is the General Minister and President of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, in the United States and Canada. She is the first person of color and second woman to lead the denomination. Since her election in 2017, Reverend Howard Owens' ministry actively reflects the disciples' priority of being an anti-racist church, being a movement for wholeness, welcoming all to the Lord's table as God has welcomed us. Her exhortation to the church is, let's be the church we say we are. It is in being who we say we are that we actively bear witness to God's limitless love for all. In addition to collaborative services with the ministries that comprise Disciples Justice Ministries, she's been active leadership in the Poor People's Campaign and other ecumenical and interfaith collaboratives. Reverend Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the Faith Not to Fall on Moving Mountain Mondays.
Thank you, sir. Good to be with you.
The amazing silence of our friends. I don't hear much about the church, particularly the evangelical church, the kind of work that Reverend William Barber has been doing with the Poor People's Campaign. And it just seems like the letter from a Birmingham jail and writing right now to the evangelical witnesses who are amazingly silent with this activity that is taking place by the U.S. military on the American people. Reverend Owens, a period, not just a day, but a period of infamy in American history.
Truly, many of those who would call themselves evangelicals think my church is too progressive for them. So although there are certain tables where I think it's Walter Kim, who's the current head of the National Association of Evangelicals. There is a group that's curated by Jim Wallace, who is a former evangelical who was sort of persona non grata with that body, because years ago he said that the church has to stand for justice. So I've been in a few spaces where, in a very ecumenical kind of way, you see a few of those voices are willing to stand and speak and act, but it's not by any means a loud or a strong voice, nor a position that they're willing to take unilaterally.
I find it interesting that so many members of our elected leadership, they say they rely upon their faith and their witness. But when we speak about this amazing silence of, the evangelical community, if you will, the non-liberation theological community, I'm saying to myself, no one has given them permission to extend or expand their thinking around or beyond where they are in this moment. It would require a profound act of courage in light of the fact that the church itself may not be backing them up on their points of view and their perspectives.
Yeah. There was an interesting post yesterday in the Huffington Post by a woman named Carolyn Bologna. And she talks about the difference between vertical and horizontal morality. Vertical morality means that you do whatever God says, no matter who it harms. God said it, you're going to do it. It's black and white. Horizontal morality has a lot to do with community and love of neighbor, and ensuring that the ways in which you behave and act and the things that you fight for are to benefit the flourishing of all humanity. And in too many ways, she argues, and I agree, that we have Christians. You ask the question, well, how can they, particularly those Christians who affirm the whole MAGA agenda, Project 2025, how can you say that you're a Christian and yet you're willing to stand up for all the other inhumanity that goes on? And it's this vertical thing that says, well, God, and it's very narrow understanding of scripture, very narrow understanding of morality, that you believe following God means, well, God said this one little piece here, and this is how I interpret it, and it doesn't really matter who it hurts or who it harms. That's fully flying in the face of who God says God is. And so those kinds of articulations are really, really crazy. So we get caught up in these very narrow definitions of not only what the Bible says, but what our morality is. And that's the very definition of Christian nationalism. You have conflated the idea of civic religion and what it means to be an American with your particular very narrow idea of what it means to be a Christian, that's not grounded in anything other than a few words of scriptures, what they call proof text. You choose a particular text because it literally says in one place what you think the full meaning is. So we're really at odds. And I think that's in my own church, I get criticized a lot because I say too much. I do too much. People are like, well, why aren't you working on evangelism? And for them, evangelism is just trying to get people in the doors. That's not my goal, is to build up little clubs on Sunday. My goal is to create a liberated that's at work for good in the world, which is what Jesus told us. He said, they'll know you're my disciples if you have love one for another. And I think when Jesus sees us on the streets, or those people that were getting in the way of the ICE folks and saying, hey, what are you doing? Let them alone, let them go. All the people who were advocating and coalescing to make resources available to communities that are under attack. If you say, I do this because Jesus said do this, to me, that's Christianity. And that's evangelism. That's evangelism when I say, I want you to know this Jesus, because this Jesus cares so much about you that I'm willing to put myself on the line to defend your humanity and your freedom. That to me is evangelism. But I still have too many arguments in my own denomination about what we're really supposed to be doing. We cannot be, yeah.
Madam President, let me ask you this question. This past week, the President of the United States stood before the nation's generals, brought in at great expense, nearly $70 million from around the world. And he spoke about the enemy within. First, who the hell is he talking about? So we can kind of like hone in on this and narrow who he thinks they are. Number two, he said that the military should be training on the streets of America. That ought to have scared the devil out of everybody. And then Pete Hegseth talked about training, and he talked about no more engagement or rules of war, maximum lethality. Madam President, how does this end? That doesn't end very well. Less than a week, the commander-in-chief instructed the military to move into American cities and treat them like they are some kind of insurgent foreign power or alien to the values of the United States, and deal with them with maximum lethality.
I mean, it's the ultimate case of othering human beings, regardless of their background. If they are, they're very scared of these statistics that tell us that America is browning, that very soon the majority of the people who live in the United States will not be white. They're very afraid of that. And I keep saying, until the United States wrestles with this issue of black and white, we won't get much else right. The enemy within, lethality. Our military resources are supposed to be there, number one, to protect us from outside forces, and they're supposed to be there to help us ensure this sense of preventing war on all levels around the world. We seem to have abdicated our role as a force for good in the global sphere, a force for freedom. I mean, Jimmy Carter used to travel around the world and monitor elections. We're going to need people monitoring our elections here. We're going to need the very things we have critiqued other nations for are the very things that America is now guilty of. And it is, I think the founding fathers, even though they never included Black people or the descendants of slaves or women or even poor white men, they never included those people. They are spinning. They are spinning. What will we celebrate in 2026? 250 years that has come to what? It defies understanding. And the sad thing is that the other two branches of government that are supposed to operate in balance and provide checks and balance are laying down and bending the knee to the will of this authoritarian president. Congress is not doing what it's supposed to do, and the courts are not doing what they're supposed to do.
My tax dollars shooting tear gas in my neighborhood, staring down the barrel of a gun that my tax dollars have paid for, dodging bullets and getting cursed out by these Texas boys and threatening my arrest with my tax dollars, not being Mirandized or read my constitutional rights is beyond my basic continence. My stomach and butterflies are just twisting at the idea. I once sued some political opponents of mine, and one of the holdings in the case in this very successful piece of litigation was this: it is impossible to imagine a moment without the First Amendment, is what the judge said. That the First Amendment is so fundamental to what it means to be an American. I am enjoining these particular political characters for denying a person for even one more second their First Amendment values. And we've gone from that interpretation all the way to, do we even have First Amendment values anymore?
That just boggles the mind, doesn't it? That these fundamental rights that we all claim, what happened to the people who stand on the Second Amendment for their right to bear arms, right? And again, I think I shared last week, I think that's a misreading of that amendment. It was to protect, the Second Amendment was really to protect the government from coming in and doing exactly what they're doing now.
That's right.
It was intended to protect that kind of overreach into invading your sacred space, your home. You have a right to be safe and secure in your own home without the government coming in to take you. That's what due process is intended to say, that you cannot be at the mercy of people who control the government. Once the government has become, when the people are more afraid of the government than the government are afraid of the people, we're really in a bad situation. And any other nation under another president, we would cease to do trade. We would have all kinds of incentives against dealing with a nation who's doing the things that the United States is doing now. We would condemn it out of hand.
Madam President, I know we have about a minute before we come forward. I do want to ask you, because I think we've stated the problem very clearly, but is there a solution? Is there a way out? We have about 1 minute before we come forward. Your thoughts, and we'll talk about it in the next segment. Is there a way out?
The only legal hope that we have is really to show up at the ballot box. And we right now need to be in the streets until it's time to vote. People need to see that the people of the United States will not stand for this kind of lawlessness.
I think that's right. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to The Faith Not the Fall with special guest Reverend Teresa Hord Owens. She is the General Minister and President of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. More with Reverend Teresa Hord Owens when we come forward on Moving Mountain Mondays, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling is defending his officers after they assisted ICE agents during violent weekend clashes with protesters.
We have a great partnership with our federal agents, and we still do, and we will continue to work with them around violent crime.
Snelling says while Chicago police do not enforce immigration laws, they will protect federal officers and prevent unlawful actions against ICE. Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens and Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who are both Black, are offering relief to unpaid TSA workers at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport during the shutdown, including free parking, meal vouchers, and concession discounts starting Saturday. And LeBron James is teasing a big announcement for noon Tuesday, posting a video titled The Decision of All Decisions. The 40-year-old NBA star entering his 23rd season first made headlines with the decision in 2010 when he left Cleveland for Miami. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Mount St. Mary's University, LA takes students to the next level. Introducing Empower, their 4-year plan to launch you into the world as an unstoppable force. Discover more at msmu.edu.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The health of Colorado football coach Deion Sanders might be becoming an issue again. Deion went to see a doctor today after he complained of severe pain in his legs during Colorado's 35-21 loss Saturday night at Texas Christian. The 58-year-old coach had to sit down a few times on the sidelines during the game. Deion has had several episodes of blood clots in his legs in recent years. He had surgery in May after he was diagnosed with bladder cancer. Colorado is 0-3 in the Big 12 Conference after Saturday's loss. Jackson State moved up from 17 to 14 in this week's Division I AA rankings. They beat Alabama A&M Saturday 57-24. Jackson State will be in Las Vegas on October 25th to play Grambling. It's the first ever HBCU football game to be played in Vegas. The game will be at Allegiant Stadium, home of the NFL Las Vegas Raiders. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. Let's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Hey, listen to this. All I needed was a new starter. Got a great deal on eBay. Did it myself.
Yeah, that's cool. But how about the soft purr of an upgraded exhaust when it fits just right?
For me, it's the little things, like these new windshield wipers from eBay I installed. From small fixes to big upgrades, eBay has all the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is Moving Mountain Mondays on our show, and we have one hell of a mountain to move. Our very special guest and contributor is Reverend Teresa Horde Owens. She is the General Minister and President of the Disciples of Christ Church. She is an activist. She is an author. She is the second woman to head the main denomination, but the first woman of color to head a mainline denomination in the United States. This is both in the United States and Canada. Reverend Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, my friend. Good to be here.
Madam President, I'm thinking now that we're going to have to scale. We've been reporting for several months, maybe even a year now, out of Los Angeles about the deployment there, and that was, by comparison to what we're looking at here in Chicago, a far softer deployment around the federal buildings. But now we have roaming patrols planned for the city of Chicago. 75th and South Shore Drive is a long way from the federal buildings in downtown Chicago. It just simply is. Maybe the nearest federal building might be a local post office.
Right.
So these roaming Humvees and bands of unaccountable soldiers, units from other parts of the country that have nothing to do with the Illinois National Guard, who, by the way, whose command will remain with the governor of Texas. They will not be commanded by the governor of Illinois. The Texans coming to Illinois are brought to Illinois through a request the governor of Texas made to the president of the United States to send Texans here that he will continue to command. Roaming our streets unaccountable to the governor of the state of Illinois or to the mayor of the city of Chicago. Not that the mayor is part of that chain of command. Yeah, I'm wondering what it's going to take to get the nation's attention on the grossness of these constitutional violations. So I thought about voting next year. Okay, that's part of it. Is that dramatic enough? I thought about what you just said. We need to stand up in the streets and we need to fight. And we've been standing up in the streets and we've been fighting. Increasingly, I am convinced that's not enough. What other tool do we have to shut America down, to get her undivided attention, other than to close two of the nation's busiest gateways, O'Hare and Midway airports, shut down the global traffic, back up the entire system, and force the system within a few short hours to begin the withdrawal of the Texans out of the state of Illinois? I just can't imagine anything on a scale that shutting down the ports actually would do to changing the course and the direction of this administration, the Congress, and the nation. Your thoughts on a general strike?
No, I think you're right. I will say, first of all, that I don't think enough of us have been on the streets on this issue. Not enough people have been out there at the scale that we need to make it to the dramatic level that you're talking about. But, you know, I fly in and out of O'Hare just about every week. So you'll shut me down you'll shut a lot of other people down whose very livelihoods really depend on that hub functioning in the United States. I think that's within their lever of power to use. And I would say, yes, do it. Drastic times call for drastic measures. And I think it's necessary for our elected officials to pull every lever that's at their disposal, file a lawsuit every opportunity, Trump likes to throw things out and just keep you guessing and overwhelm you. We have to be overwhelming in our resistance, every measure that we have available to us. As you were saying earlier in the first hour with Ernest, our only weapon really in the streets needs to be our camera. Because if they see Black or brown people with weapons, it's all over. And they will descend with a genocide that we have not seen. And they will say that we simply precipitated it, that we provoked it. So I think these legal, systemic infrastructure kinds of responses are indeed the way to go. And I have to say, I've not seen fire from anybody like I saw fire from Brendan Johnson on one of his recent
The
reels.
mayor of Chicago is bringing real smoke.
He's really upset, and I applaud him for not being afraid to bring the fire. But this is I think one of the blessings that we have are independent media channels and shows like yours, who are not managed by corporate legacy media, where you've got corporate media trying to keep mergers and things active, and so they're afraid to let you say or do certain things. But I think the visual of more people in the streets, of students, you think of this 1960s, it was the young people on college campuses where they finally said, we got to do something, because this is blowing up. And it was blowing up because of the destruction of humanity. It was blowing up because of the killing, not only in Vietnam, but here in the United States. We began to see some of that after George Floyd's murder, but we've not seen this on a level. Somebody I saw post today said, we need to see the size of a January 6th. We don't need to see January 6th taking over the Capitol in a violent way. We just need to see the massive visual that people are disturbed enough that they will exercise their constitutional right to petition their government for redress of grievance. That's as legal as the day is long.
There is a jugular. The governor of Maryland and the mayor of Baltimore, BWI, the governor of Illinois, the mayor of Chicago, O'Hare and Midway Airport, the governor of California, LAX and SFO, the governor of Atlanta, the mayor of Atlanta, and
Hartsfield.
Atlanta Jackson Hartsfield. This system can grind to a halt with the power that we presently have.
Exactly.
When we are completely fed up with the idea that our Constitution is being subverted, it is being discarded, that our fundamental rights as citizens are being threatened, we do have the power to grind the system to a halt.
Right.
That's different
And
than
again, I think we have to use every available lever of power. We really do. We are at a point when our we can't rely on the court system anymore, because even if it makes it to the Supreme Court, I'm wondering, what will it take? What kind of case would it take for the Supreme Court to perhaps even reverse itself and say, oh no, we have to put some kind of limits on these executive power, instead of saying, oh, we must always defer to the executive branch when it comes to naming threats, etc., and say, not at the sacrifice of the human rights of our American citizens, and at the rights that we extend to everyone who lives in the country. That has been litigated and proven that we extend. You don't have to be a citizen to get certain human rights. We extend human rights to anyone who occupies space in our country. That's been long a stellar part of the American story, and we have left all that by the wayside.
Madam President, I know we have about a minute and 15 seconds before we come forward, but I do want to say this. It is amazing to me in this hour just how voluntary our adherence to the rule of law and the Constitution of the United States can be. Ernest Krim read a quote in the previous hour about how minority or how white Americans can discard all law whenever they want to if they feel that their privilege is being threatened. What a great tragedy that some people in our system believe that they have that as an option in their arsenal of getting the American people's undivided attention. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Our very special guest is none other than Reverend Teresa Terry Hord Owens, General Minister and President of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. This is our Faith Not to Fall. Reverend Teresa Terry Hord Owens begins our week on a spiritual note and pushes us through the week. I hope we can make it through the week, Reverend Owens. I'm counting on you. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580. when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code MAJOR25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code MAJOR25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code MAJOR25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour, the Faith Not to Fall on Moving Mountain Mondays, is Reverend Terry Hord Owens, General Minister, President of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. Reverend Owens, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and to your show, the Teresa Hord Owens Show.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you on Mondays.
Reverend, let me ask you a question. Madam President, it seems to me that real leadership, and I'm not talking about liberal leadership, real leadership, Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, Ms. Hochul out of New York. It seems to me that we need to have an emergency meeting of the top mayors in this country, and together put together all of our weapons on the table in a very big but confidential, as best it can be, meeting on what it would take and how long it would take. For example, if the government can shut down over health care benefits, if the government can shut down because Democrats have decided to go to work and Republicans have decided to go on vacation, and that has shut down the government, then what I am proposing is not unreasonable. Shut the whole thing down. Shut the whole thing down. Shut down Wall Street. I can't imagine Reverend Al Sharpton having a problem with that. He just got finished marching on Wall Street.
Right.
Jesse Jackson wouldn't have a problem with it. If he were capable, he'd tell you that something is profoundly wrong here. Shut it down. Shut down the ports. Shut it down. Yep. And let's have a national reckoning on what this truly is and what it represents. Now, that's real leadership. Now, I'm not in a position to call it myself, nor would I expect many people to respond to it. In fact, they'd probably call me a lunatic. But the fact of the matter is, the times require desperate measures, Madam President, and we cannot do this one governor, one outspoken mayor at a time. Madam President, from your perspective as a Christian leader, leadership at this hour, what does it look like?
Leadership really, and I think you've hit on it, Jesse, it must be a collective matter. The solidarity has never been more important. It has to be a collective matter from those mayors and those governors and those Congress people and those senators who agree. The only sphere in which they're able to operate is not just in the Capitol or in DC. They have districts. They work, I assume, collectively and collaboratively with the mayors and the governors in the states and districts that they represent. But I think this collective solidarity and doing it to scale on a level that the country has really not seen before. Yes, you have in many cases Republican leaders who would not go along with you because they are bending the knee to Trump on a regular basis. But there are, I think, Republican leaders who have spine enough to come against the leadership of this administration and declare that it is unlawful, unjust, and to say that we have to show our strength collectively. The American people have to show their strength collectively. I say this all the time within our faith-based organization community. It's not enough for just one of us to speak or to issue a statement. We have to do a lot of things collectively. We have to quit trying to be the messiah of our own movement. Let's work together and make things happen and not worry so much about who gets the credit for it, but worry that we're organized and that we're effective. When they see that kind of solidarity, I think it will be very hard to stand in the way. And there are not just Black leaders or brown leaders. There are white leaders who are willing to join together. There are faith leaders who would be willing to come along this movement. One of the best stories about the power of that solidarity that I know of comes from South Africa, when Desmond Tutu said, when the faith leaders stood together in all of their holy garb and regalia and were moving towards the center of government in Johannesburg, one white person leaned over and told another person, apartheid is dead, because these people see it as holy work and they will not be deterred. We have to do something that lets people know we will not be deterred. For faith-based leaders and even for non-faith-based leaders, we have to keep that moral framework strong. But I love the idea of why can't everyone's complaining, oh, the Democrats aren't doing enough. We need to be working outside of the confines of that particular institution and stretching our arms across the entire country to say, who's with us? Whosoever will, let them come. Let us stand together and make a commitment to nonviolence, use every lever that we can. If it's shutting down airports, if it's shutting down other transit systems, if it's shutting down markets, people will pay attention. They will pay attention.
I can see the governors and the mayors shutting down the major ports that we've talked about in such a meeting. I mean, a high level meeting to discuss a strategy that, just like the government is shut down with no end in sight, we can shut the airports down with no end in sight. I also see the Teamsters playing a big role here, because the interstates simply cannot function if you guys decide, rather than drive 70 miles an hour, you decide to drive only 30 miles an hour. Now, how about that? Where every interstate in the country slows down and no one can get past a truck. Now, I'm talking about coordination of a general strike on a scale that we've not seen before, in no small measure because these unprecedented times require unprecedented outside the box thinking, and it cannot be done while we're on some kind of chessboard with the president of the United States moving pawns around and moving his pieces, the king and the queen, and killing us with his rooks and with his knights. And no, we have to shut the thing down. I mean, I'm not going to keep racking my brain. Shut it down.
The very fact that they think it's okay to pull this stuff on Portland. We got a lot of disciples of Christ out in Oregon and in Portland. We have held a general assembly there. Portland's a very diverse city. It's a very pedestrian friendly city. They've got lots of state and community colleges there, a large, not just Hispanic population, but a large Asian Pacific Islander population there as well. Portland is nowhere. Great city. It's not war ravaged.
It don't bother anybody.
Portland's one of the safest cities in the country. It's just ludicrous. And you talk about drastic, unprecedented measures. We have to name. People were so busy trying to prove that Joe Biden, right, was going senile and demented. What do we have right now?
Psychopath.
What I've heard, a psychopath, a malignant narcissist who is in dementia, a demented, malignant narcissist. There are professional psychiatrists and psychologists who have used and stood on their ground as a duty to warn, to say that we are in serious danger. And if we don't, if we called out Joe Biden for just stumbling and fumbling over a few sentences in a debate, we need to call out what this president is doing. He is not well. The man is not well.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Madam President, about 1 minute and 30 seconds for a word of hope.
I think of, in times like this, John Lewis and his focus on nonviolence as the way of God. And I'm a minister, so I have to keep God in there, and for my own sanity, so that I don't get too angry. But we have to remember to not lose our values because other people have violated them. We need to stand strong, but we need to be sure that we do not let go of that value of nonviolence and respecting the dignity of others, even when ours has not been respected.
Madam President, I can't wait till next Monday. We have more mountains to move.
Amen. See you
I'm
then.
Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest, Reverend Terry Teresa Howard Owens, has been our special guest. Please download the podcast, The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, available on KBLA Talk 1580. Please download our YouTube, go to our site, like, share, and participate in our program with us. We are expanding and we're growing right here with all of the people in Los Angeles on KBLA Talk 1580. Until tomorrow, when we come forward.
80 Santa Monica.